On this episode of the Building Phoenix Show, an abandoned warehouse is now a downtown destination called The Deuce. A 60s bank branch is adapted into the Vig Uptown. Phoenix Children's Hospital is nearing the end of its recent growth spurt, and Cityscape is becoming the downtown destination we hoped it would be. An all-new Building Phoenix Show starts right now. Welcome to the Building Phoenix Show. We're celebrating 3 years of providing you a front row seat to all that's developing in the city of Phoenix, and we thank you for watching. On this episode, we're on location at Cityscape in downtown Phoenix. Later in the show, we'll take you inside this billion-dollar mega development. But first, let's take a look back at the history of modern architecture in Phoenix and one visionary guy who left his unique stamp all across our city.
Well, modernphoenix.net was developed in 2003, and we've been documenting the modern architecture in Phoenix, Arizona. In terms of Phoenix modernism, we really think of that from 1945 to about 1972. Okay. Modern architecture is architecture that doesn't look to the past, doesn't look to historic references, and is all new, using new materials, using concrete, a lot of new techniques and methods that weren't available before the war.
The Phoenix Municipal Building, now the Calvin C. Good Building, was designed by Edward Barney and Ralph Haber and completed in 1963.
It's distinctive, first of all, because of the concrete expressionist forms that we have, the little bathtub shapes and the narrow windows, which are kind of Southwestern style, but the engineering of this building and the meeting hall behind it is pretty radical for its time. From the literature of the time, reading about what they wanted to accomplish in this time was to have a very monumental feel to the building, and it's also kind of neoclassical with the colonnades and the kind of the scale of the building. On a local stage, the 1960s were really the golden era for Ralph Haver and Jimmy Nunn's firm. They really left a legacy in their municipal buildings and in their schools. Ralph Haver's personal legacy really lies in residential architecture. He designed thousands of homes here in the valley. If they'd like to see something fun and interesting, they should probably go to Marlin Grove, which is around the 10th Street, 11th Street area between Bethany Home and Montecito. These are very modest Haver homes. They are tract homes with very similar floor plans, but many architects over the years have gone into that area and developed those homes into really exciting, fantastic, colorful, almost peacocks of homes. I would definitely recommend going to Paradise Valley United Methodist Church on Lincoln. That's one of the first churches that Haver designed. It's all red brick, and it's nestled inside a beautiful little wash there. Anybody can go on any given Sunday.
The City of Phoenix Adaptive Reuse Program was created to help business owners reuse older buildings, including these modern gems.
I'm really glad that there's that anchor there and an advocate to help these young business owners to develop and adapt our architecture, which is truly threatened and endangered. I'm really actually very impressed by the type of work that's been able to be done, especially in the restaurants and shops.
Like the Vig Uptown, a Ralph Haver designed bank branch that's now a cool eatery.
With that large, gorgeous overhang roof that they have there, the engineering is fantastic on that building and was really honored in its time as well by the AIA for its expressiveness and its beauty and the engineering.
Modern enthusiast Alison King just gave us a glimpse into the legacy of architect Ralph Haver. Now let's take a look inside one of his award-winning works of art that has been reborn for a new generation. In the early 60s, Phoenix residents dressed in their finest to to make a deposit or request a loan at the new Arizona Bank branch at 16th Street and Bethany Home Road. It's now home to the Vig Uptown.
It's funny, you see people, oh, I got my first car loan here, or I got my first bank account here. So, you know, it's just part of the fabric of this neighborhood.
But recently, this piece of the fabric was faded and torn, and Alison King, a sort of mother hen of modern architecture in Phoenix, took notice.
I was really worried about that Arizona Bank. It has an excellent presence from the street. It was actually designed to be appreciated from street side. I started to get really concerned. And when they put up that construction fence, I went up and I looked and saw who pulled the permit to do that and was able to get in contact with Tucker at the Vig and understand their plans of what they had for that building. And I was really quite excited to see that it was going to be adapted and reused in a way that the public could come and appreciate it.
Tucker Woodbury and his business partner Jim Riley have a history of turning old buildings into cool eateries. So this modern gem, designed by Phoenix legend Ralph Haver and honored in its day by the American Institute of Architecture, was in good hands.
You look at it and you go, wouldn't this be a cool space? And then you feel this sense of responsibility to the kind of the history and the root and the soul and the heritage of the building itself. And over the years, it got 70 and 80 to death. It was this beautiful building, you know, very perfect example of mid-century modern architecture. And then they started drywalling and wall-to-wall carpeting and drop ceilings.
And talk a little bit about this process was like peeling the onion of this building, peeling it down to what it originally looked like. I know you have great stained glass windows, some of these original floors. What were some of the biggest surprises that you found?
There were some obvious things because the stained glass was there, and we loved the original glazed brick and would never have changed that ever in a million years. And I think the biggest thing that we found was the old bank vault. All of that with that kind of that decorative molded shrouding was the original bank vault, and so it was all covered with drywall. We exposed that, and then we kind of decided we don't want to remove it, so what can we do? So we made that the focal point of the entire restaurant.
And it serves a purpose. Now instead of a stash of cash, you'll find beer, wine, and food stored inside. Alison King suggests looking up to enjoy what she considers one of the building's most distinctive features.
Those T-concrete forms that we see in the roof area are, from an engineering standpoint and from a structural standpoint, are very impressive. When you are in that restaurant and you see that you're just covered with, or sheltered by concrete, it's very massive and very safe feeling, which is exactly what a bank should feel like. So now that it's been turned into a restaurant, any of us can go and appreciate it. And I like sitting in the drive-in area where the tellers used to be, which is now the back patio.
The patio area, which features bocce ball, was the biggest challenge because Tucker wanted to create an outdoor space that wouldn't disturb the neighbors.
We had to rethink that whole process, and although when you go out there you'll see that it's kind of an Arizona room feel right now and all the windows are closed, when it's nice, all those windows pivot, so it's almost like Chase Field, the windows in the back of Chase Field, and they open, so it still has a very open air feel. But when it gets later in the evening or when it's hot, we can either close them to keep it cool or close them so we don't disturb our neighbors.
One of Tucker's favorite new design elements was made to look original, this block facade on the front of the building.
We found the mold, they resurrected the mold, and they made each one of those blocks by hand.
And recycled wood scraps from other restaurant remodels add warmth to the interior space. But as usual, we get to talking about the building and we forget about the food. It's the perfect mix of, you've got a lot of the old favorites that people are familiar with. Like I know if I bring my dad, he's not going to eat anything that he's not familiar with. So you have that with a twist.
Right.
And then also things for people that are adventurous. I think it's a great mix. So what was your favorite to create or that you're most proud of on the menu?
I think the thing that I liked the most, and I think it was something that was kind of a little bit more out there than other things, but I made a tandoori chicken pizza. It's made on a naan bread and it has curry sauce on it, a little bit of sauteed spinach, some sun-dried tomatoes, then it has tandoori chicken, it has paneer cheese, which is Indian cheese, and then a little bit of cheddar cheese on top. And then it has a pear and cardamom chutney on it.
Chef Lenny, who built his reputation at the Ritz, Mary Elaine's, and the Phoenician, says customers love the hot chick. We're talking about the chicken sandwich, of course. And the new Persian chicken kebab is a favorite. along with the sizzling steak salad and his classic burgers with a twist.
We can modify almost all of the dishes to be gluten-free or vegan.
And Chef Lenny is a hands-on guy who makes sure the food coming out of the kitchen matches his culinary vision.
I get right in there every day and I do the prep with all my cooks.
And I have heard that if the chef isn't in the kitchen, you probably don't want to eat there, and so that's a great sign. If you're thirsty, head over to the bar. Mixologist Julia suggests the Vig Uptown's signature cocktail, Take Bethany Home. It's among a menu of cool offerings.
We're grateful that the city recognizes that there is a need for adaptive reuse. Without the help of the city and the adaptive reuse process, you would be unable to do it. That's kind of all part of what we wanted to do here, which is to take an iconic building and bring it back to kind of its original, Haver's original vision for the building. They don't build buildings like this anymore. They just don't build buildings
And
like
it's the
this.
ultimate in recycling, really. I mean, you're saving this entire building from the landfill because, like you said, it wasn't protected. Anyone could have come in and bulldozed it.
And probably would have.
The city's award-winning adaptive reuse program was created to make it easier to turn old buildings into new businesses. For more information, call 602-534-7344.